Why it sucks to be a Ballas soldier. You grew up in Davis, not because you chose it, because that's where you were born, where your block is, where everyone you know has always been. The purple was already there when you arrived. The war with the families was already running. The rules of the neighborhood were already written, and you just learned them by watching what happened to the people who didn't know them. By the time you're old enough to make a real choice, the choice has already been made for you. You're a Ballas soldier now, bottom of the hierarchy. No name in any cutscene, no dialogue in any mission. Just a body on the corner, a color on your back, and a territory to hold that someone decided was worth dying for long before you got here. And here's what nobody tells you when you put on the purple. You are not a player in this war. You are a piece on the board. And the people moving the pieces don't live on your block. Before we talk about what it's like to be at the bottom of the Ballas, you need to understand what the Ballas actually are in GTA 5. The Ballas are one of the largest and most established gangs in Los Santos. They operate across Davis with 3 distinct sets: the original Covenant Ballas in the west, the East Side Ballas controlling the eastern corridors, and the South Rancho Ballas pushing into the southern edges of the city. 3 sets, 3 territories, 1 color, 1 war that never stops. On paper, that sounds like power, and at the top, maybe it is. But the Ballas are not running Los Santos. They're locked in a permanent, grinding territorial conflict with the families that has consumed generations of soldiers on both sides and produced nothing. No expansion and no exit. Just the same blocks, the same corners, the same war with different faces in it every few years because the old faces are gone. And who profits from all of this? Not the soldiers standing on Covenant Avenue at 2 in the morning. Not the kids who grew up watching the purple and made the only decision that felt available to them. The people who profit are the ones who never have to stand on that corner. The ones who use the Ballas' territory, their muscle, their willingness to absorb casualties and pay for it in product and promises, rather than anything that changes the actual conditions of anyone's life on the ground. You are not the Ballas. You are the Ballas' workforce. Here's the layer that the street doesn't see clearly until it's too late. In GTA 5, the Ballas don't operate in isolation. They never did. Their rise to dominance over South Los Santos, pushing the families out of territory they'd held for decades, expanding their crack trade, consolidating their position across Davis, didn't happen because the Ballas were simply stronger. It happened because they had help. In GTA San Andreas, that help came directly from Frank Tenpenny and the Crash Unit. Tenpenny didn't eliminate the Ballas. He cultivated them. He used them as a tool to destabilize the families, to keep South Los Santos in a controlled state of chaos that served his own interests. The crack cocaine trade that the Ballas built their power on, the same trade that gutted the neighborhood, that turned corners into markets and residents into customers, was something Tenpenny actively facilitated. Not because he cared about the Ballas, because a neighborhood at war with itself is a neighborhood that isn't looking up at the people running it. By GTA 5, Tenpenny is gone, but the structure he helped build is still standing. The Ballas are still in Davis. The crack trade is still running. The war with the families is still going. Nothing changed. The puppet master changed. The puppet stayed in place. And at the very bottom of that structure, below the sets, below the shot callers, below everyone who has any actual understanding of the machinery there inside, is you, the nameless soldier, the body on the corner. The one who catches the bullet when the families push back, or when a protagonist needs a mission cleared, or when law enforcement decides this block needs a show of force today. You didn't build this system. You were born into the part of it with the shortest life expectancy. Let's talk about what the job actually looks like day to day, because it's not what the color makes it seem from the outside. Your territory is Davis, which means your territory is also one of the most heavily policed neighborhoods in Los Santos, not because the LSPD is invested in protecting the people who live there, but because South Los Santos is a pressure point the city needs to manage. You have a wanted level the moment you do anything visible. The cops who respond aren't coming to investigate. They're coming to suppress. The difference matters, and it is never in your favor. Your rivals are the families, a gang that has been fighting the same war from the other side for just as long, with soldiers who grew up under the same conditions, made the same limited choices, and are just as expendable to their own hierarchy as you are to yours. You are not fighting an enemy, you are fighting a mirror, and neither side wins. The corner changes hands, the bodies accumulate, the corner changes back, and then there are the protagonists. Franklin Clinton grew up families, which means every mission that involves Franklin pushing into Ballas territory, every job that requires clearing a block, taking out a set, disrupting an operation, lands directly on soldiers like you. You're not a boss in those missions. You're not a named antagonist with a storyline. You're the ambient resistance, the bodies that need to be moved through to get to the objective. You exist in Franklin's story as an obstacle, not a person, an obstacle. Now let's talk about the financial reality. The Ballas run crack through Davis. That's the foundation of the operation has been since San Andreas. Hasn't changed by GTA 5. The product moves. The money exists somewhere in the hierarchy, but by the time it filters down to the soldier standing on the corner, actually holding the territory that makes the whole operation possible, there's not much left. You're not getting Rockford Hills money. You're not getting Vinewood money. You're getting enough to stay in Davis, stay loyal, and stay useful. The economics of street-level gang membership are not a path to wealth. They're a mechanism for keeping people exactly where they are, doing exactly what the hierarchy needs them to do, for just enough return that leaving feels harder than staying. And leaving is its own problem, because the Ballas don't have an alumni network. There's no exit package, no transition plan. You know the corners, the names, the operations. That knowledge doesn't become less dangerous to the people above you just because you'd like a different life. The off-ramp is narrow, poorly lit, and nobody who's used it has come back to recommend it. The color gets on you, and it doesn't wash out. This is the part that seals it. You've survived the corner, survived the war with the families, survived the police pressure, survived the internal politics of a gang that will sacrifice you the moment you become more trouble than you're worth. And then, the story needs something from your block. It doesn't matter which mission or which protagonist. What matters is that when GTA 5's story intersects with Ballas territory, which it does, repeatedly, because Davis is a staging ground for half the criminal activity in the city, the soldiers on the ground are not participants in the narrative. They're set dressing that shoots back. Franklin grew up fighting the Ballas and moves through their territory like it's a loading zone. Michael and Trevor, when the story requires it, treat South Los Santos like a place you pass through on the way to something that actually matters. The police treat it like a problem to be managed rather than a community to be protected. And through all of it, the protagonist missions, the police sweeps, the families pushing back on the east side, the nameless Ballas soldier is just there, holding the corner, taking the heat, absorbing everything the city throws at the bottom of the hierarchy while the people at the top stay exactly where they are. You are not a character in this story, but the reason the story has somewhere to happen. So let's bring it all together. You're a Ballas soldier in Davis. You didn't design the territory war, you inherited it. You didn't build the crack trade, you were handed a position inside it. You didn't choose the enemies, the allies, the corrupt institutions that alternately ignore and weaponize your neighborhood depending on what's politically convenient that week. You just showed up on the block you grew up on, in the color that was already there. And the system, the whole interlocking machinery of gang hierarchy, police pressure, political indifference, and protagonist storylines doesn't need you to understand any of it. It just needs you to hold the corner, take the risk, absorb the loss, and be replaceable when you're gone. Because you are replaceable. The Ballas were here before you, and they'll be here after. The corner will still need holding, the color will still need wearing. Someone else will step into the position you occupied and inherit the same war, the same odds, the same invisible ceiling on what this life can actually become. In most stories, soldiers fight for something. A cause, a future, a version of the world that looks different when the fighting is done. In GTA 5, the Ballas soldier fights to maintain a status quo that was designed by people who don't live in Davis, in a war that has no endgame, for a hierarchy that will spend your life and call it the cost of doing business. The cop was built to lose. The civilian was built to be ignored. The Ballas soldier was built to be used. And the cruelest part? From the corner, on the block, in the only world the game ever showed you, it still looks like the only option. The Ballas soldier is a pawn in someone else's war with no way out. Trevor Phillips's employees think they have a choice. They don't either. Next video, why it sucks to work for Trevor Phillips.